A perfectly formed hammer was found sealed inside stone, 100 million years old. This is the power of an archaeological anomaly, a piece of evidence that stands in stark contradiction to our accepted timeline. These are not mere curiosities. They are profound puzzles that force us to reconsider the entire human story. By the end of this journey, you will have encountered 30 specific discoveries that challenge the foundations of history itself. We will examine metallic objects that predate humanity and structures built with a precision that seems impossible for their era. How much of our past remains hidden, waiting to be rediscovered? The hammer was discovered in a place called London, Texas, giving it its now famous name. In 1936, a local couple was out walking along a creek bed when they noticed a curious piece of stone with what looked like wood protruding from it. They took it home and cracked the rock open, revealing the iron hammerhead perfectly fitted inside its handle. The stone itself was identified as a concretion, a hard lump that forms around an object over immense periods, and this particular stone was dated to the Cretaceous period. That places its formation firmly in the age of dinosaurs, over 100 million years before the earliest known humans. The wooden handle had undergone a process called coalification, where organic material turns to coal under pressure, yet it was still clearly a crafted handle. Even more puzzling was the iron of the hammerhead. Metallurgical analysis showed it to be of exceptional purity, lacking the slag and imperfections typical of ancient ironworking, yet it also wasn't a modern steel alloy. It was a metal unlike any known from conventional history. The most common scientific explanation is that the hammer is a genuine tool from a more recent century, perhaps the 1800s, that somehow fell into a mineral-rich crevice. Over time, dissolved minerals cemented around it, creating the illusion of great age. Yet for many, this explanation struggles to account for the complete encasement in such ancient stone and the unique metallurgy. The London hammer stands as a quiet, physical question mark. It asks us not to blindly accept a rewritten history, but to honestly confront an artifact that simply should not be. If our dating methods are correct, what does that say about the timeline of human, or perhaps something else's, technological development? This solitary tool points toward a profound possibility that advanced knowledge may have appeared, vanished, and been forgotten long before our recorded story even began. That single hammer is a solitary mystery, but what if we found an entire machine? Off the coast of a Greek island called Antikythera, sponge divers in the year 1900 discovered the wreck of a Roman cargo ship. Among the statues and ceramics, they recovered a lump of corroded bronze and wood that seemed unremarkable. For decades, it sat in a museum storage room, labeled as a piece of nautical debris, perhaps an astrolabe. It was only when researchers began to look closer, using advanced imaging techniques like X-ray tomography, that the truth emerged. This was not a simple instrument. It was an intricate mechanical computer, a device of staggering genius now known as the Antikythera Mechanism. The mechanism is a compact assembly of at least 30 precisely interlocking bronze gears, housed in a wooden case no larger than a shoebox. Through a complex series of hand-turned dials and pointers, it could model the motions of the sun, the moon, and the 5 planets known to the ancient Greeks. It predicted lunar and solar eclipses, accounted for the irregular orbit of the moon, and even tracked the cycle of the ancient Olympic Games. The engineering is so refined, with gear teeth cut to exacting mathematical ratios, that nothing of comparable complexity appears in the historical record again until the sophisticated astronomical clocks of 18th century Europe. This places it over 1,000 years ahead of its time. We have dated it to sometime between 270 and 200 BCE, a product of the Hellenistic world. How did such advanced knowledge simply vanish? Scholars believe the mechanism represents the pinnacle of a lost lineage of Greek mechanical science, a tradition hinted at in fragmented writings but never before seen in physical form. This was likely a demonstration piece, perhaps from a school of thought connected to great minds like Archimedes. The knowledge required to build it, a deep synthesis of astronomy, mathematics, and precision metalworking, seems to have been suppressed or forgotten amidst the political upheavals and library burnings of the collapsing ancient world. The Antikythera Mechanism is not merely a relic, it is a silent witness to a potential golden age of ancient engineering. It forces a humbling question: what other chapters of human technological achievement have been erased by time, their only traces waiting to be decoded in the cryptic passages of ancient texts or still buried beneath the earth? Electricity, the invisible force that powers our modern world, is a discovery we firmly place in the last few centuries. Yet nestled within the sands of an ancient village, a small clay jar whispers a different story. Known today as the Baghdad Battery, this artifact was unearthed from a Parthian settlement near modern-day Baghdad. It consists of a simple terracotta pot, roughly the size of a fist. Inside, a carefully rolled copper cylinder houses a solid iron rod, and the opening was once sealed with an asphalt or bitumen plug. The design is strikingly, undeniably functional. When the jar is filled with an acidic liquid, something as common as vinegar or fermented grape juice, a chemical reaction occurs between the two dissimilar metals. This creates a measurable, though small, electric potential, enough to produce a faint current. These objects are dated to a period spanning roughly 250 years before the Common Era to 250 years after, a time frame that predates the official discovery of the galvanic cell by Alessandro Volta by nearly 2 millennia. The profound mystery is not its construction, which is elegantly simple, but its intended purpose. What did its creator hope to achieve with this trickle of electricity? One compelling theory suggests electroplating, the process of using an electric current to coat a base metal with a thin layer of a precious metal like gold. Artisans of the period were masters of gilding, and a small battery could have provided a more controlled method than traditional chemical techniques. Another possibility points toward ritual or medicine. The mild shock from such a device could have been interpreted as a mystical or healing sensation, used in religious ceremonies or early therapeutic practices. Skeptics argue it may have simply been a secure storage container for sacred scrolls, with the metal components being purely structural. Yet the presence of the asphalt seal, which would have held the metals in place and insulated them, strongly implies the jar was meant to hold a liquid. Regardless of its specific use, the Baghdad Battery's existence is a monumental anomaly. It represents a tangible spark of empirical knowledge, a hands-on experiment with a fundamental force of nature. This artifact dismantles the comforting idea of a straight, upward line of human progress. Instead, it suggests a flickering pattern where insights into chemistry and electricity could flare up in one culture, be applied or revered for a time, and then be completely lost to the wider world for generations. It challenges the narrative that all ancient technology was purely mechanical or architectural. Here is evidence of someone probing the unseen, harnessing a subtle reaction between metal and acid. This single jar forces us to ask how many other basic principles were discovered, utilized in a limited context, and then forgotten, only to be independently reinvented centuries later. If a culture could stumble upon the principles of a battery, what other fundamental truths might have been glimpsed only to fade from memory? This concept of lost knowledge becomes even more startling when we consider the next anomaly, which seems to encode an understanding of a force far more powerful and elemental than a simple electric current, hidden within the very stones of a sacred site. The silent power of a forgotten electric current is one thing, but to witness stone itself turn to glass by a fury of heat is something else entirely. High on windswept hills across Scotland, the ruins of ancient forts hold a secret written in fire. These are the Vitrified Forts, and their stone ramparts are not merely collapsed, they are fused together in a smooth, glassy mass. This process, called vitrification, happens when silicate rocks are heated to a staggering 1,100 degrees Celsius or more, a temperature that liquefies the stone, which then cools into a dark, brittle glass. The mystery is not the result but the cause. How did Iron Age communities living over 2,000 years ago achieve such phenomenal, localized heat? An ordinary bonfire of wood or peat might reach 800 degrees, enough to blacken stone but nowhere near enough to melt it. To reach vitrification temperatures requires a sustained, intense inferno, the kind produced by advanced industrial furnaces or perhaps a catastrophic, focused event. One long-standing theory suggests these forts were deliberately set ablaze by their builders as a form of architectural bonding, using not just wood but specific fuels like animal fat or coal, combined with complex bellows systems to supercharge the flames. Yet no clear evidence of such sophisticated pyrotechnic technology has been found elsewhere in the region from that era. Another idea points to the ravages of ancient conflict, that these strongholds were so fiercely besieged and burned that the very stones ran like wax. But to vitrify entire sections of a wall, the fire would need to be maintained at an impossible intensity for days, a logistical nightmare for any attacking force. More speculative explanations look to the skies, pondering whether a massive atmospheric plasma discharge, something like a colossal lightning strike or an unknown energetic phenomenon, could have flash-heated the stonework in an instant. Each theory encounters its own hurdles. The deliberate construction theory cannot explain why only certain forts are vitrified, and only in specific sections, not the entire structure. The warfare theory struggles with the sheer energy requirement. The natural phenomenon idea, while fascinating, lacks any corroborating evidence from the geological record. Standing before a wall like that at Ta Prohm Stegosaurus, you are confronted by a monumental thermometer frozen in time. The glassy stone records a single, unambiguous fact: an overwhelming thermal event occurred here. It speaks of a force, whether wielded or endured, that stands outside our standard understanding of early Scottish history. These forts are not passive ruins, they are active puzzles, their melted ramparts posing a silent, stubborn question about the limits of ancient technology and the possible presence of forgotten, high-energy events in our distant past. This profound mystery of applied and extreme heat finds a startling parallel thousands of miles away, in a discovery that suggests such knowledge was not confined to the misty highlands, but may have also flickered to life under the bright sun of the African continent. Deep in the earth of Gabon, Africa, a mine yielded ore that told an impossible story. When French scientists analyzed uranium from the Oklo deposit in the 1970s, they found something startling. The ratio of uranium-235, the isotope essential for nuclear fission, was significantly lower than it should have been. It was as if a portion of it had simply been used up. Further investigation revealed the extraordinary truth. Approximately 1.7 billion years ago, in that very spot, a set of perfect natural conditions aligned. Rich uranium ore deposits were saturated with groundwater, which acted as a natural moderator, slowing down neutrons just enough. This allowed a self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction to begin. This was not a man-made reactor, but a geological one. For hundreds of thousands of years, this natural atomic pile pulsed in a slow, rhythmic cycle, likely turning on for about 30 minutes as the water heated and turned to steam, which then dissipated, shutting the reaction down until the area cooled and water seeped back in to start the process again. The evidence is etched into the very rock in the presence of fission byproducts that match exactly what a controlled reactor would leave behind. This phenomenon is now fully accepted by science as a rare but explainable natural wonder, a testament to the precise and delicate balance our planet can achieve. Yet its implications are quietly revolutionary. It demonstrates that the awesome power of atomic fission is not a human invention at all, but a latent property of the universe, a natural process that has been occurring on Earth for longer than complex life has existed. This fact alone invites a profound line of questioning. If such a reaction can occur naturally, could ancient, observant cultures have ever encountered its effects? Could the heat, the strange rocks, or even localized phenomena have been noted and perhaps integrated into myth or ceremony? While there is no direct evidence of ancient peoples harnessing nuclear power, Oklo stands as a monumental reminder that the boundaries between natural wonder and technological principle are far more porous than we often assume. It challenges the very notion of what constitutes a discovery. Did we invent the nuclear reactor, or did we merely rediscover and replicate a process that the Earth had already perfected billions of years before? This shifts our perspective from seeing advanced knowledge as a purely human ascent to recognizing it as a collaborative uncovering of the universe's inherent rules. From this revelation of nature's own atomic machinery, we turn our attention back to human hands, to a collection of artifacts so bizarre and out of place that they seem to defy any known rule of cultural development. A ceramic cylinder, a metal core, and a mystery sealed in stone for 500,000 years. In 1961, 3 mineral collectors were searching for geodes in the dry, rugged landscape of California's Coso Mountains. They found a promising nodule, a hardened lump of clay and pebbles, and upon cracking it open discovered not the glittering crystal cavity of a geode, but something infinitely more strange. Inside was a rigid, mechanical-looking object. At its heart was a 2-millimeter wide rod of bright, magnetic metal, possibly an alloy. This rod was surrounded by a ceramic cylinder, which was itself encased in a hexagonal sheath of material that appeared to be corroded copper. X-ray images taken later showed additional internal components, including what looked like a tiny metal spring or helix. To many observers, the assembly bore a striking, unsettling resemblance to a modern spark plug or an electrical insulator. The true enigma, however, lay in the material that encased it. Geologists who examined the nodule described it as a hardened concretion of clay, pebbles, and fossil shells. Using testing methods available at the time, they estimated the age of this concretion to be at least 500,000 years. This date would place the object's entombment in the Middle Pleistocene, an era when early humans were just beginning to use the most basic stone tools. The immediate and prevailing scientific explanation is that the Coso artifact is exactly what it resembles, a 20th century automotive spark plug, likely from the 1920s era brand Champion. The theory suggests it was lost or discarded in the desert, where mineral-rich waters slowly deposited layers of hardpan around it, creating a convincing concretion over mere decades rather than millennia. Proponents of this view point to the rapid formation of similar mineral nodules around modern objects in certain environments. Yet those who discovered and initially studied the object insist the concretion was solid, layered, and appeared genuinely ancient, not a quick accretion. The artifact itself has been lost since the late 1960s, making modern reanalysis impossible, forever locking its truth in debate. This object has become the quintessential example of what researchers call an out-of-place artifact, or OOP art, an object of advanced technological appearance found in a context where it has no logical business being. It forces a binary choice of interpretation. Either our understanding of geological processes and dating is fundamentally flawed in this instance, allowing a modern object to mimic incredible antiquity, or our timeline of human technological achievement is missing entire chapters. The Coso Artifact, whether a spark plug or something far more mysterious, serves as a perfect symbol for this entire field of inquiry. It represents the visceral shock of the familiar found in the ancient, a cognitive dissonance that challenges us to question not just the object, but our own assumptions about time and progress. This pattern of the jarringly advanced is not unique to the American West, as a journey across the Pacific reveals a stone canvas that depicts a similar, haunting contradiction. A stone dinosaur gazes silently from a temple wall, within the labyrinthine corridors of Ta Prohm, a 12th century temple in Cambodia. A single sandstone panel holds an image that stops modern visitors in their tracks. Among the intricate carvings of divine figures and mythical creatures is the clear, unmistakable shape of a quadrupedal animal. Its most defining features are a series of large, upright plates running along its spine and a tail adorned with sharp spikes. To any contemporary eye, it is a Stegosaurus. The problem, of course, is the timeline. The temple complex was built under the Khmer Empire, with its main construction dated to the late 1100s. The Stegosaurus, however, was a creature of the Jurassic period, vanishing from the Earth approximately 150 million years before the first stone of Anka was laid. Western science did not formally describe and name the Stegosaurus until the late 1800s. So what is this image doing here, carved with such deliberate detail centuries earlier? Skeptical explanations propose it is a highly stylized representation of a known local animal, perhaps a rhinoceros or a wild boar, with the iconic plates being misinterpreted leaves or decorative flourishes from a surrounding jungle scene. Yet the placement and proportion of these features are remarkably specific. The plates rise directly from the spine in a distinct row, and the tail spikes are separate, pointed projections, not part of a floral background. The creature's overall posture and morphology align more closely with popular reconstructions of dinosaurs than with any known contemporary fauna of Southeast Asia. If we entertain the possibility that the carving is intentional, we are left with a profound puzzle. How could Khmer artists have conceived of such a creature? One compelling, though speculative, answer lies in fossils. While not common in Cambodia itself, dinosaur fossils have been found across Asia. It is not impossible that weathered bones or even a partial skeleton could have been unearthed by temple builders or travelers and brought before the king or high priests. An ancient artist tasked with depicting a newly discovered monster from the earth might have interpreted the strange bony plates and tail vertebrae as they saw them, creating a composite image that we now recognize as a dinosaur. This idea challenges a rigid separation between human history and deep time. It suggests that the memory of giant, prehistoric creatures may not be the sole province of modern paleontology, but could have flickered at the edges of cultural memory, interpreted through the lens of myth and religion. The Ta Prohm carving, whether a lucky artistic coincidence or a genuine glimpse of forgotten knowledge, forces a simple but radical question. Could the dragons and great beasts of global folklore be distant, distorted echoes of real encounters with fossilized remains? This single stone panel blurs the line between geological era and human epoch, reminding us that the past is a single, continuous story, and we have only begun to read its earliest chapters. From this enigmatic depiction in relief, we now turn to structures that are mysteries not of image, but of immense scale and inexplicable engineering, where the stones themselves are the puzzle. The stones of Puma lie scattered across the Bolivian Altiplano like the pieces of a giant, shattered machine. This is not a ruin in the traditional sense of weathered walls and crumbling arches. It is a deconstruction site, a field of precisely mutilated geometry that defies easy explanation. The blocks themselves, carved from hard andesite and red sandstone, are the heart of the mystery. They are not merely large, some weighing over 100 tons, they are unnervingly perfect. Their surfaces are cut with razor-straight grooves, channels, and notches that intersect at flawless 90-degree angles. Some feature complex, interlocking shapes like giant stone Lego bricks, designed to fit together with a seamlessness that would challenge modern masons. Most haunting are the drill holes, bored with a consistent diameter and depth, appearing as if made by a powerful, steady bit. This is stonework that looks machined, a product of templates and precision tools, not the slow chipping of bronze or stone implements. The standard historical narrative attributes Puma Punku to the Tiwanaku culture, which flourished around 500 or 600 years after the Common Era. While the Tiwanaku were undoubtedly sophisticated, the technological gap between their other known works and the engineering witnessed here is staggering. Quarrying these monolithic blocks from sites miles away across the harsh highland terrain was a Herculean feat of logistics, but shaping them with this degree of exactitude implies a mastery of materials, mathematics, and mechanics that seems to belong to a different age entirely. The prevailing theory suggests the use of stone tools, abrasives like sand, and immense patience. Yet this fails to satisfy when confronted with the microscopic precision of the cuts, the uniformity of the channels, and the sheer volume of work that would be required. Puma Punku feels like a blueprint for a technology we no longer understand. It whispers of lost methods, perhaps involving specialized tools or compound machines that have left no trace in the archaeological record. The site does not tell us a story of gradual progress, but of a sudden, brilliant flash of capability, after which the knowledge itself seems to have been shattered along with the stones. This signature of impossible precision is not unique to the Andes. It finds a direct and famous parallel across the ocean, in the timeless sands of Egypt, where another culture left behind stones cut with a similar, haunting exactness. The scattered stones of Puma Punku find a grand echo in the most iconic structure on Earth. The Great Pyramid of Giza is a monument not just to scale, but to a precision that borders on the impossible. Its accepted construction date of around 2,560 years before the Common Era places it firmly in the early Bronze Age, a time of copper chisels and stone hammers. Yet the engineering witnessed in its form speaks of a knowledge that seems to leapfrog millennia. Consider the foundation. The pyramid sits on a bedrock plateau, but its base was made perfectly level. Across an area covering over 13 acres, the variation from true level is less than 1 inch. This is not merely impressive for ancient times, it is a feat that would challenge modern contractors with laser-guided equipment. Then there is the orientation. Each of the 4 sides is aligned to the cardinal directions with an error of just a fraction of a degree, with the north-facing side pointing to true north with astonishing accuracy. This alignment implies not just observational skill, but a profound mathematical understanding of the Earth's rotation. The exterior, now mostly stripped away, was once clad in brilliant white Tura limestone casing stones. These were not simple blocks stacked roughly together. They were cut with such exacting flatness and fitted with joints so incredibly tight that even a sheet of paper, let alone a razor blade, could not be inserted between them. The surface they created was so smooth it was said to appear as a single, luminous plane from a distance. How was this achieved? The standard explanation involves copper tools, abrasive sand, and vast amounts of human labor. Theories suggest the use of water-filled trenches for leveling and the tracking of stars for alignment. While plausible in principle, these methods strain to account for the consistent, microscopic perfection achieved on such a colossal scale. The precision is not a decorative afterthought. It is fundamental to the pyramid's integrity and likely its symbolic purpose. It implies a master plan executed with unwavering discipline, a society capable of translating complex geometric and astronomical concepts into physical reality with near-flawless accuracy. This level of technical sophistication feels anomalously advanced, as if the blueprint arrived fully formed. It challenges the gradual narrative of technological progress, suggesting instead a peak of knowledge attained very early, a high watermark from which later civilizations would recede. To understand this mystery further, we must move from the overwhelming perfection of the exterior and step inside, into the confined passages and chambers where a different, more intimate anomaly awaits. Deep within the darkened crypt of the Hathor Temple at Dendera, a stone relief glows with a different kind of light. Carved into the sandstone wall is a series of striking images. Each shows a large, bulbous object, often described as resembling a pear-shaped glass vase. Inside this container, a snake stretches its length, its body held rigid. The snake is connected by a cable-like line to a pedestal, supported by a figure of a jed pillar, the ancient Egyptian symbol for stability. To a modern viewer, the composition is startlingly familiar. It looks for all the world like a giant light bulb, with the snake as the glowing filament, the cable as the wire, and the jed pillar as the insulated base. The entire assembly even seems to be held aloft by a priestly figure, as if presenting or maintaining a piece of sacred technology. This is the so-called Dendera light, and it has sparked one of the most enduring debates in alternative archaeology. The conventional Egyptological interpretation is elegant and steeped in mythology. Scholars explain that these reliefs are not literal blueprints, but symbolic illustrations of a profound creation story. The bulbous shape represents the primordial lotus flower from which the sun god is born each morning. The snake inside is the deity itself, often the god Harsamtus, emerging from the lotus into the world. The jed pillar provides the divine stability for this cosmic event, and the cables are stylized lotus stems. The entire scene is a spiritual metaphor for the dawn, for resurrection, and for the cyclical nature of life. Yet, the visual parallel to electrical apparatus is so precise it feels intentional. If one were to take the images literally, they seem to depict knowledge of principles like an evacuated glass tube to contain a filament and prevent combustion, and the transmission of energy along a conductive path. Proponents of this view ask a provocative question: could the dark, inner chambers of pyramids and temples, places where torch smoke would have been disastrous, have been illuminated by something other than flickering flame? The controversy lies not in dismissing the mythological meaning, but in wondering if the myth itself was a way of describing a real, but poorly understood, technological phenomenon. Perhaps a rare natural electrical effect, like St. Elmo's fire or glowing gases in a sealed container, was observed by priests and ritualized into a symbol of divine power. The Dendera reliefs stand as a perfect example of the interpretive chasm between our world and the ancient one. They challenge us to see with two sets of eyes simultaneously, one that recognizes a beautiful spiritual allegory, and another that cannot unsee the schematic of a lamp. This forces a humbling realization: our modern perspective, filled with wires and bulbs, inevitably colors how we read the past. We project our own technological framework onto their symbolic language, searching for echoes of our world in theirs. Whether a depiction of sacred myth or a diagram of lost science, the carvings at Dendera illuminate a fundamental truth. The line between advanced technology and high ritual may have been far thinner in the ancient mind than it is in our own. The sheer mass of 1,000-ton stone redefines our understanding of ancient ambition. In the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon, the ruins of the Roman Temple of Jupiter at Baalbek rest upon a foundation that predates Rome itself. This platform is built from the largest cut stones ever handled by human hands, known as the trilithon. 3 colossal limestone blocks, each measuring roughly 64 feet long, 14 feet high, and 13 feet wide. Their weight is calculated to be around 800 tons apiece, the equivalent of 2 fully loaded jumbo jets. The Romans are credited with constructing the magnificent temple above, but these foundational stones are different. Their style, their staggering scale, and their placement suggest a far older origin, perhaps from a forgotten megalithic culture that occupied the site millennia before the first Roman legionnaire ever set foot there. The engineering puzzle is profound. How do you quarry a block of that size? How do you shape its sides with such clean lines? And most impossibly, how do you transport it over half a mile from the quarry and then lift it over 20 feet into the air to fit seamlessly into a wall? Even with the advanced cranes, pulleys, and organized labor of the Roman Empire, moving an 800-ton block was a task of almost mythical difficulty. The mystery deepens just a short distance away in the quarry. There lies the stone of the pregnant woman, a single, partially detached block estimated to weigh over 1,000 tons. It was cut, shaped, and prepared for transport, but for reasons lost to time, it was never moved. This abandoned giant offers a frozen snapshot of the process, its sheer size making the accomplishment at the temple platform seem even more miraculous. Conventional theories propose the use of massive wooden rollers, levers, and armies of workers or oxen pulling on ropes, combined with ingenious ramp systems. Yet the physics involved strain these explanations to their breaking point. The ground pressure from such a concentrated weight would crush ordinary wooden rollers into splinters. The coordination required to maneuver a block longer than a city bus on a winding path without modern steering or braking mechanisms seems almost supernatural. Baalbek stands as a monument to a forgotten industrial scale. It suggests a period lost in the fog between prehistory and recorded antiquity, where a civilization possessed not just the will to build with mountains, but the logistical and mechanical genius to actually do it. This site whispers of a lost textbook of engineering, a chapter in human history where moving the immovable was not a fantasy, but a practiced craft. From these stones that were moved with impossible effort, we now consider stones that appear to have moved on their own, leaving behind a mystery written not in quarries, but in the soft, dry earth of the desert. The silent, sliding stones of Death Valley write their own stories in the mud. At a place called the Racetrack Playa, a flat, dry lake bed in California, heavy rocks weighing up to 700 pounds have been caught in the act of moving on their own. They leave behind long, graceful trails in the cracked clay, some stretching for hundreds of feet, curving and zigzagging as if guided by an invisible hand. For over a century, this stood as one of geology's most charming and baffling puzzles, with theories ranging from powerful gusts to subtle earthquakes or even magnetic fields. The mystery was finally solved through patient observation and a bit of luck. Researchers discovered that under rare, perfect conditions, a thin layer of ice forms on the playa after a winter rain. As the sun rises, this ice sheet breaks into large, floating panels. A gentle, persistent wind, often just strong enough to ripple a flag, pushes these ice sheets across the shallow water. Rocks embedded in the ice become sails, gliding effortlessly across the slick clay below. When the ice melts and the water evaporates, the rocks are left stranded at the end of their mysterious journeys, with only their elegant trails as a record of the silent ballet. This natural explanation, however, does not diminish its power as a metaphor. The moving stones teach a vital lesson in the search for historical truth. They remind us that nature is a master of illusion, capable of crafting patterns that appear deliberate, intelligent, or even supernatural. Before leaping to conclusions about lost technologies or unknown forces, we must first listen closely to the quieter explanations offered by wind, water, and ice. Yet, this principle of seeking natural causes meets its limit when we look down from above. Some patterns etched into the earth are so vast, so geometrically precise, and so undeniably intentional that they silence any theory of accidental creation. They demand a different kind of explanation, one that involves the human mind operating on a breathtaking scale. From a distance, they are nothing but faint scars on a sun-baked plateau. But from the air, the desert floor transforms into a sprawling canvas of impossible art. The Nazca Lines of Peru are geoglyphs on a scale that defies ground-level comprehension. Stretching across nearly 200 square miles of the Pampas to Jumana, these are not small carvings. They are monumental designs, some lines running arrow straight for miles, while others curve into the shapes of a hummingbird with a wingspan wider than a jet, a spider with perfectly proportioned legs, a monkey with a spiraling tail, and even a humanoid figure often called the astronaut. The creators were the Nazca people, who flourished from roughly 500 years before the Common Era to 500 years after. Using a simple but effective technique, they removed the dark, iron oxide-coated surface pebbles to reveal the lighter, sandy soil beneath. The dry, windless climate of the region has preserved these shallow grooves for over 2 millennia. The true mystery is not how they were made, but why. What drove a culture to invest such immense, coordinated effort into creating art they could never see in its entirety? One prominent theory suggests an astronomical purpose, that the lines and shapes align with celestial events like solstices or specific star clusters, forming a giant calendar etched into the earth. Another compelling idea frames them as sacred pathways, walked during rituals to invoke deities associated with water and fertility in this desperately arid land. The most tantalizing hypothesis connects them to the gods themselves. If the Nazca believed their deities resided in the sky, then these massive, beautiful images would be offerings meant only for a divine audience, a form of worship visible solely from above. This implies a sophisticated cosmology where the landscape itself became a temple. The organizational feat is staggering. To maintain the proportions of a 200-foot-tall pelican or a 900-foot-long pelican over such distances required advanced surveying techniques, likely using simple stakes and ropes, but applied with mathematical precision and a shared vision across generations. The lines challenge our assumptions about ancient capability not through misplaced machinery, but through the power of unified cultural purpose. They represent a different kind of intelligence, one that could translate complex symbolic thought into geographical permanence. This monumental effort to communicate with the sky finds a curious parallel in a very different kind of earthwork, one that suggests not a message for the heavens, but a footprint of a connection across the seas. While the straight lines of Nazca speak to the sky, another culture chose the circle. In the highlands of western Mexico, the ancient site of Guachimontones presents an architectural vision so unique it stands apart from the entire Mesoamerican world. Built by the Tuchitlan tradition between 300 years before the Common Era and 900 years after, its central structures are not the familiar rectangular pyramids of the Maya or Aztec. Instead, they are circular stepped pyramids, rising in perfect concentric tiers like gigantic stone wedding cakes. Each pyramid is composed of a central altar, surrounded by a circular platform, which is then surrounded by yet another larger platform, creating a series of nested rings connected by ramps. This design is not merely a stylistic choice, it is a profound anomaly. Nothing like it exists elsewhere in the region. While circular structures appear in other ancient cultures across the globe, from the talayots of the Mediterranean to the round towers of Ireland, here in the heart of Mesoamerica, the circle was king. This suggests a powerful, isolated cultural development, a school of thought that looked at the cosmos and saw not corners but cycles. The entire complex is a masterwork of planned community, featuring a sophisticated ball court for the ritual sport common to the area, and deep shaft tombs that held the remains of elite individuals alongside rich offerings of ceramics and jewelry. The very isolation of this circular architecture challenges a comfortable historical narrative, that of linear cultural diffusion. It asks us, could innovation spring up independently, not from borrowing a neighbor's ideas, but from a deep, local contemplation of geometry and cosmology? The Guachimontone's circles are a quiet rebellion against the standard pyramid, a declaration that another way of seeing the world and building for it was not only possible but brilliantly realized. From this uniquely American expression of sacred geometry, we cross the Atlantic to an island where myth and stone intertwine so completely that they have become inseparable. Beneath the crystal waters off Japan's Yonaguni Island, the ocean floor holds a secret that refuses to be easily categorized. This is the Yonaguni Monument, a colossal, tiered structure rising from the seabed, its sheer faces and flat plains stark against the shifting sand. From above, it looks like a sunken fortress, a sprawling complex of platforms, steps, and what seem to be wide terraces, all meeting in precise, sharp angles. One prominent feature resembles a massive staircase with steps over a meter high, while another looks like a carved pillar. The entire formation is monolithic, carved from a single bed of sandstone, and it sits at a depth where sunlight still dances across its enigmatic surfaces. The debate it ignites is a perfect clash of perspectives. Geologists examining the site's location in an active seismic zone point to the powerful natural forces at work. They describe how sandstone fractures along natural plains and how relentless tidal currents can erode rock into astonishingly geometric shapes over millennia. The region's frequent earthquakes could explain the clean, straight fractures that give the monument its architectural appearance. This, they argue, is a spectacular example of nature's own stonemasonry, a random but breathtaking coincidence of geology. Yet, for those who see more than chance, the monument presents a compelling counter-argument. They ask why so many seemingly artificial features, right angles, parallel lines, and what look like carved channels are all assembled in one specific location. They point to formations that appear less like fractured rock and more like deliberately crafted steps or altars. The most profound implication comes from sea level history. If this structure was shaped by human hands, it could not have been built underwater. It would have been constructed on dry land at a time when sea levels were dramatically lower during the last ice age. That pushes its possible origin back to a staggering 10,000 years or more, a time when mainstream history tells us humans in this region were hunter-gatherers, not builders of monumental stone architecture. The Yonaguni Monument exists in a tantalizing limbo. It is neither definitively natural nor conclusively man-made, but something hauntingly in between. It forces us to confront the limits of our own perception. Are we seeing patterns because we are pattern-seeking creatures, desperate to find the handiwork of our ancestors in the deep? Or are we witnessing the eroded footprints of a culture so ancient its very memory has been washed away by the rising seas? This submerged enigma perfectly captures the essence of our entire exploration, the razor's edge where the world's natural artistry ends and the ghost of human intention might just begin. Buried beside the bones of an ancient giant, a sliver of metal whispered of a different kind of time. In 1974, construction workers digging a trench along the banks of the Mureș River in Aiud, Romania, made a startling discovery. Roughly 30 feet down, they uncovered two large fossilized bones, later identified as belonging to a mastodon, a massive elephant-like creature that vanished from Europe around 11,000 years ago. Nestled right beside those bones was a strange, wedge-shaped object. It was heavy for its size, covered in a thick layer of hardened oxide, and clearly made of metal. Initially dismissed as perhaps an old axe head, it was sent for analysis. The results were baffling. The oxide layer was indeed ancient, but beneath it, the metal itself was an alloy composed primarily of aluminum. This fact alone sent shockwaves through the small circle of researchers who examined it. Aluminum is the most abundant metal in the Earth's crust, but it is never found in a pure metallic state in nature. It is always locked tightly into compounds, most commonly bauxite. To liberate the pure metal requires a sophisticated industrial process called electrolysis, involving immense electrical current passed through molten cryolite. This technology was not perfected until the late 19th century, with the first commercial aluminum production hailed as a modern marvel. So how did a refined aluminum alloy end up buried in a layer of earth alongside the remains of an Ice Age megafauna? The immediate and most accepted explanation is one of simple intrusion. The object, skeptics argue, is a piece of a modern excavator bucket or mining drill tooth from the 20th century. It could have fallen into the pit during earlier, unrecorded digging, sinking down through softer sediments until it came to rest next to the much older mastodon bones, creating a false association. This is a well-documented phenomenon in archaeology called stratigraphic disturbance. Later, less publicized analyses seem to support this, noting the alloy's composition was consistent with certain modern industrial metals. Yet the original discoverers and some investigators maintain the context was secure, the layer undisturbed, and the oxide layer genuinely ancient. The Aod wedge thus becomes a perfect case study in the conflict between context and material. It represents the classic dilemma of anomalous metallurgy. Do we trust the story told by the ground in which it was found, a narrative of immense antiquity? Or do we trust the undeniable fact of the material itself, which points unequivocally to a recent industrial origin? There is no comfortable middle ground. Either our understanding of site formation is wrong, or our timeline for metallurgical science is incomplete. This small, heavy wedge forces us to confront the limits of interpretation. It is a lesson in humility, reminding us that a single object can hold two mutually exclusive truths, and choosing which to believe often says more about our own assumptions than about the silent artifact itself. From this modern metal in an ancient setting, we shift to a demonstration of ancient skill so delicate and precise it seems to defy the very tools of its era. The stones of the Inca do not merely sit together, they embrace. In the heart of Cusco and the mighty fortress of Sacsayhuaman, walls are built from blocks of granite and andesite so hard they can spark steel. Yet these are not simple rectangles. Each stone is a unique, irregular polygon, a giant puzzle piece with 12, 20, or even 32 distinct sides and angles. The builders took these colossal, jagged shapes and fitted them together with a precision that defies belief. The joints between them are so seamless that for centuries, locals and visitors alike have tested them with the blade of a knife or a single sheet of paper and found no gap to penetrate. This is polygonal masonry, and it represents a stonemasonry so advanced it appears to have no clear technological evolution leading up to it and no lasting tradition following it. The mystery lies not in the quarrying, which was a monumental task in itself, but in the final, intimate fitting. How did they achieve such perfection? One theory suggests a patient, almost artistic process of trial and error. A block would be roughly shaped in the quarry, transported to the wall, and then repeatedly offered up to its neighbors. Stonemasons would mark the high points, grind them down with stone hammers and abrasive sand, and try again over and over until the fit was absolute. This is plausible, but the scale and complexity of some walls make the time and labor required almost unimaginable. Other, more speculative ideas propose the Inca possessed lost knowledge of materials. Could they have used a plant-based compound, a paste derived from a local species that temporarily softened the surface of the stone, allowing them to mold it like clay before it hardened again? Or perhaps they understood how to apply focused heat or even specific sonic vibrations to make the rock more pliable at the point of contact. These methods are not supported by direct evidence, but they speak to the depth of the puzzle. The result, however, is undeniable. These walls have withstood centuries of earthquakes that have toppled later Spanish colonial buildings constructed right beside them. The interlocking, jigsaw-like design creates a structure that flexes and settles without collapsing, a testament to engineering genius disguised as art. The technique feels like a peak, a sudden, brilliant summit of craft that appears in the archaeological record fully formed. It challenges the idea that complex technology must always build slowly upon simpler versions. Here, it seems the Inca, or the culture they inherited this knowledge from, mastered the most difficult form of stone construction first. Their walls are not just barriers, they are permanent conversations between stone and stone, a language of fit and resilience we have yet to fully decipher. This mastery of shaping stone to a perfect custom fit finds a parallel in a very different kind of precision, one that leaves behind not a massive wall, but a microscopic signature of impossible cutting. Granite yields its secrets only under immense, focused pressure. In the museums of Cairo and the weathered temples along the Nile, the stone itself tells a story of tools that should not exist. Look closely at unfinished obelisks, at the sockets of broken statues, and most tellingly, at the rare, surviving core samples extracted by ancient Egyptian artisans. These cylindrical plugs of granite or diorite, often still sitting in their original drill holes, are frozen moments of a machining process. The walls of these holes are not rough or chipped. They are inscribed with deep, perfectly parallel spiral grooves, running the length of the bore with a uniformity that is deeply unsettling. The spacing and depth of these grooves reveal two critical facts. First, the drill bit was fed into the stone at a consistent, astonishingly rapid rate, removing material with an efficiency that seems to defy the presumed tools of the Bronze Age. Second, the pressure applied must have been tremendous, hundreds if not thousands of pounds, to force a cutting tool through rock as hard as granite at such a pace. Modern experiments using reconstructed copper tube drills with an abrasive slurry of sand and water can replicate the basic idea, but they produce grooves that are irregular, shallow, and slow to form. The ancient grooves speak of a feed rate and cutting power more akin to a modern drill press with a diamond-tipped bit than a man laboriously turning a bow back and forth. Even more perplexing are the cores themselves. Some show a small, perfectly round central hole running down their axis. This suggests the use of a solid, cylindrical drill bit, not a hollow tube. Yet the force required to drive a solid bit through granite, while simultaneously creating such clean, deep spirals in the walls, implies a level of mechanical advantage and stability that is simply not reflected in any known Egyptian tool catalog. This is not a question of artistry, but of industrial physics. The evidence, etched immovably in stone, points to a lost chapter of practical engineering. It suggests the dynastic Egyptians, or a predecessor culture they learned from, possessed drilling apparatus of a sophistication we have not credited them with, machines capable of applying steady, immense downward pressure with a perfectly centered rotation. This was not magic, but a forgotten mastery of leverage, weight, and abrasive technology that has since vanished from the historical record. From this tangible proof of impossible machining, we turn to an object that seems to be a physical blueprint for a principle that would not be understood for millennia. The silent testimony of stone drills is a language of force and precision, but a small, wooden form asks a quieter, more graceful question. Carved from sycamore wood and discovered in a tomb at Saqqara, Egypt, rests an artifact known simply as the Saqqara bird. Dated to approximately 200 years before the Common Era, it is a delicate object just a few inches long, shaped with the elegant curves of a bird in flight. Yet one feature immediately sets it apart from any known avian species. Its tail is not horizontal, like the rudder of a sparrow or hawk, but perfectly vertical, rising from the body like the stabilizer fin of a modern aircraft. This single, deliberate design choice transforms the entire object. To the modern eye, it no longer looks solely like a bird. It bears an uncanny resemblance to a model glider or a drone. The wings are carefully shaped with an airfoil contour that modern aerodynamics engineers confirm could generate lift if launched into a breeze. The vertical tailfin would provide crucial directional stability in flight, preventing a spin, a feature completely unnecessary for a simple bird figurine meant only to sit on a shelf. The standard and most reasonable interpretation from Egyptology is that it is exactly what it appears to be, a stylized representation of a falcon, a bird deeply sacred to the god Horus. The vertical tail, in this view, could be a simplified artistic convention, a stylized perch, or perhaps even a representation of a feather fan or ceremonial standard. It might have been a child's toy, a ritual object, or simply a piece of decorative art, yet its aerodynamic properties are difficult to dismiss entirely. Could it be a coincidence that an artist, through intuition or careful observation of birds in flight, sculpted a form that aligns so closely with principles of flight that would not be formally understood for another 2,000 years? This is the subtle power of the Saqqara bird. It does not scream of lost technology like a crystal skull or a metallic machine. Instead, it whispers of observation. It invites us to consider that ancient artisans were not just symbol makers, but keen students of the natural world. Perhaps a craftsman watched a bird soar on a thermal current, noted the angle of its wings and the roll of its tail feathers, and sought to capture that essence in wood, creating a form that inadvertently encoded a physical truth. The bird asks us to expand our definition of ancient science beyond mathematics and astronomy to include a nascent, empirical understanding of physics, of air and motion. It is a testament to the human mind's ability to intuit function from form, long before the underlying mathematics are ever written down. This pursuit of understanding the properties of the material world, of manipulating substances to achieve a desired effect, leads us from the aerodynamics of wood to the transformative science of chemistry, where ancient artisans sought not to mimic flight, but to defy time itself through a legendary metallic alloy. The vibrant color of Egyptian blue has never truly faded from history. This is not a pigment found in nature, but a synthetic creation, a product of deliberate human ingenuity, first formulated over 4,500 years ago. To produce it, ancient artisans had to combine precise quantities of silica sand, copper ore, calcium carbonate, and an alkali like natron. This mixture wasn't simply stirred together. It had to be fired in a furnace at a carefully controlled temperature, somewhere between 850 and 1,000 degrees Celsius. A few degrees too low and the reaction wouldn't occur. A few degrees too high and the mixture would turn into a useless glassy slag. This was not a haphazard process of trial and error, but a repeatable industrial-scale chemical recipe. The result was a stable, brilliant blue that adorned the tombs of pharaohs and the statues of gods, a color that has resisted fading for millennia while other ancient pigments have turned to dust. Modern scientific analysis has revealed an even more astonishing property. When exposed to certain wavelengths of light, Egyptian blue emits a powerful near-infrared luminescence, a hidden glow invisible to the naked eye but detectable with special cameras. This property is now being studied for potential use in modern medical imaging and security inks, a direct technological bridge spanning 45 centuries. The longevity of this knowledge is as significant as the discovery itself. The recipe for Egyptian blue was used consistently for over 3,000 years, from the Old Kingdom through the Roman period. This represents a sustained, sophisticated tradition of applied chemistry and pyrotechnology, a continuous thread of expert knowledge passed down through countless generations of craftsmen. It wasn't a secret held by a single priest or a fleeting experiment. It was widespread practical science embedded in the culture. This pigment stands as a quiet, colorful monument to an ancient industrial mindset, proving that advanced understanding of materials and controlled reactions was not only possible but commonplace in the ancient world. It challenges the notion that such chemical mastery was a later development, showing instead a deep, empirical familiarity with transforming earth and fire into something both beautiful and enduring. This mastery over stone and heat reaches a startling extreme in our next location, where the evidence suggests not a careful firing, but a cataclysmic application of energy that left the very bedrock forever changed. The precise seams of Inca polygonal masonry hold another, more unsettling secret. At sites like Sacsayhuaman and the terraces of Ollantaytambo, certain sections of the colossal andesite blocks present a surface that is not cut but seemingly transformed. The stone appears to have a smooth, almost glassy texture, as if the very surface once softened and flowed like candle wax before cooling back into a solid, rippled state. This phenomenon is distinct from the clean, sharp edges of the famous stonework. It looks less like carving and more like melting. Geologists examining these features propose a natural explanation known as vitrification, where intense, prolonged heat can fuse silicate minerals into a glassy crust. Yet the source of such heat in these contexts is a profound puzzle. Could it be the result of mineral-rich water, leaching through the stone over centuries and depositing a hard, shiny glaze that only mimics the look of melting? Or does the evidence point toward something more direct, a technology that applied extreme, localized heat to the stone faces? If this effect was intentionally created, it suggests a construction method far beyond anything we traditionally attribute to the Inca or their predecessors. Imagine the process applying a focused thermal source, perhaps from a compound of plants or minerals that generated immense heat upon combustion, to the surface of a giant block. This would temporarily soften the stone, allowing builders to mold it, smooth it, or even fuse it to a neighboring block without the endless grinding and shaping. Such a technique would explain not only the vitrified patches but also the incredible, custom-fit joints of the polygonal walls, achieved with a fraction of the labor. This idea, while speculative, revolutionizes our thinking about ancient construction. It moves the narrative from brute force and patience to one of applied chemistry and thermal science, a lost art of stone shaping that treated rock not as an unyielding obstacle, but as a material that could be persuaded. From these stones that may have flowed under an ancient heat, we journey to a place where the stone itself took a perfect spherical form, crafted from one of the most stubborn materials on Earth. Hidden in the jungle, smooth giants rest in perfect silence. Across the Diquis Delta of Costa Rica, hundreds of stone spheres lie scattered, some half buried in the earth, others arranged in mysterious alignments. Carved from a dense volcanic rock called gabbro, these spheres are monuments to a forgotten obsession with the circle. Their sizes range from that of a bowling ball to colossal orbs over 6 feet across, weighing several tons. The true marvel is not their size, but their impossible geometry. Modern measurements of the most intact spheres reveal a deviation from a perfect sphere of less than a centimeter across their entire surface. Achieving this level of precision on such a massive, hard stone, without the aid of metal tools or modern measuring devices, is an engineering feat that borders on the mystical. These spheres were crafted by the pre-Columbian Diquis culture, with their creation spanning a vast period from roughly 300 years before the Common Era to around 1500 years after. This culture left behind no written language to explain their work, only these silent, polished sentinels. The how of their creation is a puzzle of patience and technique. Researchers believe the process began by selecting a large boulder, then using smaller stones of equal hardness to batter and peck it into a rough spherical shape. The final, breathtaking smoothness was likely achieved through a combination of controlled heating, and rapid cooling to fracture the surface, followed by endless hours of grinding with sand and water. This was a project of generations, not individuals, a cultural commitment to an ideal form. Their purpose is an even greater mystery. Some spheres were found arranged in lines or geometric patterns, leading to theories they were astronomical markers, calendars tracking the sun or stars. Others were placed near important dwellings or burial sites, suggesting a social or spiritual significance, perhaps representing celestial bodies, deities, or symbols of power and unity. The most haunting possibility is that their meaning was never purely practical but profoundly philosophical. The sphere is the most perfect shape in nature, with no beginning and no end, representing eternity, balance, and the cosmos itself. By investing immense labor into creating these perfect forms, the Dikwis people may have been attempting to mirror the order of the universe, to bring a piece of celestial harmony down to earth. Their silent presence today is a powerful reminder that the drive to create perfect geometry, to seek meaning in form, is a timeless human impulse. This same enigmatic drive, this desire to leave behind a perfect and puzzling shape, echoes thousands of miles away in a very different landscape, where another set of stones was arranged not for perfection, but for a purpose that still hums with a strange and potent energy. A fossilized sea creature offers a perfect lesson in seeing what we want to see. During the 1990s, a team of Russian researchers investigating the remote Kaluga region made a startling announcement. They had discovered a small, mysterious object embedded within a piece of sandstone. The object was metallic, and to the eye, it appeared to have a distinct, spiraling thread pattern running along its length, just like a modern metal screw. The rock layer from which it was recovered was dated to an astonishing 300 to 320 million years ago, a time when the first reptiles were only just beginning to appear on land. The implications seemed to shatter timelines, suggesting a piece of manufactured hardware from an era before dinosaurs. The initial excitement, however, was met with swift and sobering scientific analysis. Geologists and paleontologists examining the photographs and descriptions identified the object not as a technological artifact, but as the fossilized remains of a marine animal known as a crinoid. Often called sea lilies, crinoids are ancient creatures related to starfish, with long, segmented stalks made of stacked, disc-like plates. When these stalks fossilize, especially under conditions where minerals replace the organic material, the stacked plates can weather and erode in a very specific way. The central canal of the stalk can become filled with a harder mineral, while the surrounding plates wear down, leaving the central column standing in relief. This erosion pattern can create a striking, spiral groove that looks for all the world like a machined screw thread. This case stands as a textbook example of a powerful psychological phenomenon called pareidolia, our brain's innate tendency to impose familiar patterns, especially faces or mechanical shapes, onto random or natural forms. We see a man in the moon or a face in the clouds, and in this instance we saw a screw in a fossil. It is a humbling reminder of how our modern perspective, saturated with technology, can unconsciously color our interpretation of the ancient past. The Russian screw fossil teaches a vital, dual lesson for any explorer of mysteries. First, it underscores the absolute necessity of rigorous, cross-disciplinary analysis. An archaeologist might see a tool, but a geologist sees sedimentation, and a paleontologist sees a fossil. The truth often lies at the intersection of these expert views. Second, and perhaps more importantly, it does not condemn curiosity. Instead, it refines it. The goal is not to stop looking for anomalies, but to sharpen our tools for evaluating them, to temper our wonder with a disciplined search for natural explanations first. This balance between open-minded imagination and rigorous scrutiny is the very essence of responsible exploration. a principle that guides us as we approach one of the most debated and electrically charged sites in all of alternative archaeology. The timeline of civilization just fractured. On a windswept hill in southeastern Turkey, the stones of Göbekli Tepe rise from the earth with a message that rewrites our deepest origins. This is not a city, not a temple in the conventional sense, but a series of monumental stone circles constructed around 9,600 years before the Common Era. That is a staggering 6,000 years older than Stonehenge and a full 7 millennia before the first blocks of the Great Pyramid were laid. The builders were not settled farmers living in bustling towns. According to all available evidence, they were nomadic hunter-gatherers, people we have long pictured living in small, mobile bands focused solely on survival. Yet here they accomplished something that defies that simple story. They quarried, transported, and erected massive limestone pillars, some weighing over 10 tons, carving them into distinctive T-shapes. These monoliths were then arranged into precise circles and adorned with breathtakingly intricate reliefs of animals, foxes, scorpions, lions, and birds, frozen in a vibrant stone menagerie. The sheer scale of labor involved, the coordinated effort of hundreds of people over likely generations, shatters the foundational model of human progress. That model states clearly, first comes agriculture, which provides a food surplus. That surplus allows people to settle in one place, which leads to complex society, social stratification, and only then, monumental architecture and organized religion. Göbekli Tepe stands that sequence on its head. Here, the architecture appears to have come first. The compelling theory emerging from this dust is that the drive to build something grand, to gather for a shared spiritual or social purpose, may have been the very engine that sparked the agricultural revolution. The need to feed the large groups of people coming together to work on these circles could have incentivized the cultivation of wild grains and the management of animals in the surrounding hills. In this light, Göbekli Tepe is not an anomaly in the landscape, it is the catalyst. It suggests that the human impulse to create meaning, to gather around symbols and shared effort, might be the primary force that compelled us to change our world, not the other way around. This site forces a profound reimagining of our prehistory, where the temple may have preceded the farm, and the symbol truly did come before the city. If our understanding of societal beginnings can be so fundamentally inverted, it invites us to question other foundational firsts, like the moment we first mastered the secret of metal. The monoliths of Göbekli Tepe remind us that the first chapters of civilization may have been written in stone, not soil, but another material, one far less permanent, would soon become the signature of a different kind of mastery. In the heart of Delhi, a slender iron pillar stands as a quiet rebuke to time itself. Forged in the 4th or 5th century, this 23-foot-tall column of pure wrought iron has endured over 1,600 years of monsoons, heat, and urban pollution without succumbing to the red rust that claims nearly all iron artifacts. Its survival is not a miracle of chance, but a monument to forgotten science. Modern metallurgical analysis has revealed the pillar's secret, a high phosphorus content and a remarkably low sulfur content. This specific composition, achieved through a sophisticated smelting process using charcoal, allowed a thin, protective layer of iron hydrogen phosphate hydrate to form on its surface. This passive layer, only microns thick, acts as an invisible shield, preventing the corrosive chemical reactions that would normally eat away at the metal. While ironworking was certainly known in ancient India, the sheer scale and perfection of this artifact represent a pinnacle. Casting a single, solid mass of iron of such purity and size was a staggering technical achievement for its time, requiring precise control over furnace temperatures and a deep, empirical understanding of ore composition. The pillar is not an anachronism in the sense of being impossibly early, but it is an anomaly of refinement. It speaks of a metallurgical tradition that reached a height of practical chemistry and engineering, a formula for near eternity in metal that was either not widely replicated or was later lost. It stands not as a mystery of origin, but as a mystery of culmination, a solitary peak of ancient industrial art whose full recipe we have only recently begun to appreciate. While this pillar charts a known location with unwavering permanence, other artifacts from a similar era purport to chart lands that, according to all conventional history, should not have been known at all. A map drawn in 1513 holds a coastline that should not exist. The Piri Reis Map, named for the Ottoman admiral and cartographer who compiled it, is a fragment of a larger world chart surviving on gazelle skin parchment. At first glance, it is a masterpiece of early 16th century navigation, showing the known coastlines of Europe, Africa, and Brazil with remarkable detail. Yet, it is the southernmost section that ignites a firestorm of debate. Below the Atlantic, the map depicts a landmass with bays, rivers, and what looks like a mountainous interior. To many who study it, this land bears a startling resemblance to the northern coastline of Queen Maud Land in Antarctica, a continent that would remain officially undiscovered by European explorers for another 300 years. The most provocative detail is that this coastline is shown free of glacial ice, a condition that, according to geological evidence, last existed in Antarctica millions of years ago. How could a Turkish admiral in the 1500s have possibly known this? Piri Reis himself provided a clue in the extensive notes written on the map. He stated openly that he did not invent these coastlines, but compiled his work from a multitude of source maps, some of which he described as being very old, dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. This admission opens a tantalizing door. Could his chart be a copy of a copy, a relic from a lost era of global exploration, when ancient seafarers from a forgotten civilization mapped a world not yet locked in ice? The skeptical interpretation offers a more conservative, yet still fascinating explanation. Critics argue the mysterious southern land is not Antarctica at all, but a distorted, speculative extension of the South American coastline, a common practice in early cartography where unexplored regions were filled with guesswork based on rumor and myth. They point to inaccuracies in other parts of the map as evidence of its human, fallible origin. Yet, the precision of certain latitudes and the uncanny fit with subglacial topography revealed by modern radar surveys keep the mystery alive. The Piri Reis Map does not provide easy answers, but it poses a perfect, haunting question. It forces us to wonder how much geographical knowledge has been lost in the fires of libraries, the sinking of ships, and the slow collapse of empires. It suggests that the age of exploration we celebrate may have been, in truth, an age of rediscovery. This enigma of a world once known and then forgotten finds a parallel in a much smaller, but equally perplexing form of preservation, where the image of life itself was captured in a moment of stone. The line between discovery and deception can be as fine as the scratch of a berin on stone. In the Ica region of Peru, a collection of andesite river stones presents one of the most contentious puzzles in all of alternative archaeology. These stones, ranging from the size of a fist to a large melon, are covered in intricate engravings that depict scenes which directly challenge our understanding of the past. The images show humans in active, familiar contact with creatures we recognize as dinosaurs, including Triceratops and Stegosaurus. Other stones illustrate what appear to be advanced medical procedures like heart transplants and cesarean sections, detailed maps of lost continents, and complex astronomical charts. If authentic, these stones would be a visual encyclopedia of impossible knowledge, a record of a civilization that witnessed the age of reptiles and possessed technology rivaling our own. The story of their discovery is murky, tied to a local farmer named Basilio Asciuglia, who, in the 1960s, began selling them to a physician and enthusiast doctor, Javier Cabrera. For years, the stones fueled sensational claims and captivated those searching for evidence of a forgotten human epoch. The mystery, however, unraveled under the pressure of investigation. Confronted by authorities for selling archaeological artifacts, which is illegal, Asciuglia confessed. He stated that he and other farmers had carved the stones themselves using simple tools, aging them with cow dung to give them a patina of antiquity. He later recounted part of his confession, claiming some stones were genuine, and he only admitted to forgery to avoid jail, but the damage to their credibility was profound. The Ica stones now stand as the quintessential cautionary tale in the field of anomalies. They perfectly illustrate how the passionate desire to rewrite history can be exploited, and how the absence of a verified scientific context, a clear record of where an object was found, in what layer of earth, alongside what other materials, renders even the most spectacular artifact meaningless. They muddy the waters for every legitimate mystery, forcing researchers to apply rigorous filters of provenance and peer review. This episode teaches a difficult but necessary lesson: that our enthusiasm for the unknown must always be tempered by a disciplined commitment to evidence, a principle that guides us away from contested carvings and toward an ancient device whose authenticity and genius are beyond all doubt. Even the Romans, a civilization whose roads, laws, and aqueducts we feel we know intimately, left behind a riddle in bronze, scattered across the former expanse of their empire, from the damp frontiers of Britain to the sun-baked provinces of North Africa. Archaeologists have unearthed over 100 peculiar objects. They are called Roman Dodecahedra, each one a hollow, palm-sized cast of bronze or sometimes stone. Their geometry is precise and captivating: 12 flat pentagonal faces, each adorned with a circular hole of varying diameter. The corners are often tipped with small knobs. They are beautiful, meticulously crafted, and utterly baffling. These objects are not rare finds from a single eccentric workshop. They are a widespread phenomenon, dating from the 2nd to the 4th century, a period of immense Roman documentation. And yet, in all the surviving letters, military records, satirical poems, or engineering manuals, there is not a single written word that mentions them. It is a silence that echoes across centuries. For an empire so fond of order and record-keeping, this complete absence of reference is as mysterious as the objects themselves. The range of proposed uses is a testament to our collective puzzlement. Some suggest they were simply decorative candlestick holders with a wax taper inserted into each hole. Others propose they were dice for a complex, forgotten game, or tools for gauging the optimal size of stone or pipe for construction. More elaborate theories cast them as astronomical devices for calculating sowing dates by aligning sunlight through the holes, or as religious symbols representing the cosmos, held by priests during rituals. Yet every theory meets a practical hurdle. If they were candle holders, why are none found with wax residue? If they were measuring gauges, why the intricate knobs and the lack of standardization in hole sizes? If they were sacred, why are they found in such mundane contexts as market stalls and military outposts? The dodecahedra resist easy categorization. They represent a different kind of anomaly, not one of impossible age or material, but of forgotten purpose. They remind us that an artifact's meaning is not inherent in its form alone, but is woven into the daily life and common knowledge of its culture. That knowledge has been severed. These small bronze puzzles are a profound lesson in the fragility of understanding. They show that even a civilization we have studied in exhaustive detail can possess a commonplace item whose true function can evaporate from history, leaving behind only a beautiful, silent question. This mystery of a lost purpose within a well-charted empire finds a darker, more elemental parallel in a city whose sudden end is etched not in cryptic metal, but in scorched stone and fused sand. The stones of tall el-Hammam hold a memory of fire from the heavens. In the Jordan Valley, archaeologists excavating this ancient city, a site many associate with the legendary Sodom, uncovered a destruction layer unlike any other from the Bronze Age. Dated to around 1,650 years before the Common Era, the scene is one of abrupt and total devastation, but the clues point to a force far beyond invading armies or a simple accidental blaze. Here, pottery sherds were not merely blackened, they were melted into bubbled, greenish glass. The very mud bricks of the city walls did not crumble but were transformed, their surfaces fused into a slick, vitrified crust. Even chunks of building stone were found welded together, as if by a momentary, unimaginable heat. This is not the signature of torches or a siege. It is the fingerprint of a thermal shock so intense and so brief it turned earth and clay to ceramic and glass, a process that requires temperatures soaring well over 2,000 degrees Celsius, hotter than the heart of a blast furnace. Normal fires, even catastrophic ones, simply cannot achieve this. For decades, the cause of this vitrification was a profound puzzle, a local anomaly with terrifying implications. Then, a multidisciplinary team of scientists published a compelling explanation. They proposed that tall el-Hammam was struck by an atmospheric airburst, the cataclysmic explosion of a meteor or comet fragment high above the city, similar to the Tunguska event that flattened a Siberian forest in 1908. The physics are chillingly plausible. The shockwave from such an event would have leveled every structure instantly. A moment later, a searing thermal pulse, a flash of radiant heat from the fireball, would have swept across the ruins, literally cooking the surfaces of everything it touched before the air itself cooled. This scientific hypothesis does something remarkable. It bridges cosmic catastrophe and human history. It shows how an extraterrestrial event can leave behind an archaeological signature so extreme it looks like the work of a mythical, advanced weapon or a divine judgment. The vitrified ruins stand as a sobering monument to human vulnerability, a reminder that our stories and our cities are written not just by our own hands, but by the indifferent mechanics of the solar system. They challenge us to read the past with new eyes, to recognize that some of history's most abrupt endings may have origins not in human conflict, but in the silent drift of ancient ice and stone through the void. This final, fiery anomaly leads us to our last, a discovery that asks not about a civilization's end, but about the quiet, persistent nature of its very beginnings. Our final stone circles the question back to the very beginning of time. Deep within the mines of South Africa, workers have for decades been extracting a peculiar geological curiosity from rock layers known as the Wonderstone Formation. These are the Klerksdorp Spheres, small metallic objects, usually no larger than a walnut or a golf ball. Their composition is most often a hard mineral like pyrite or hematite, and they are found embedded within a sedimentary rock called pyrophyllite, which has been dated to a staggering 2.8 billion years old. This places their formation in the Precambrian Eon, a time when Earth's atmosphere was toxic to us, the only life was microscopic, and the continents were barren, alien landscapes. The spheres themselves are unnervingly perfect. Many are not just round but mathematically spherical to a degree that feels deliberate. The true anomaly, however, is the groove. A significant number of these spheres feature 1, 2, or even 3 perfectly parallel grooves etched around their circumference, like the lines of latitude on a tiny globe. To the human eye, trained by millennia of toolmaking, they look manufactured. They look like components. It is an image that sparks the most profound speculation imaginable. Could these be artifacts from a non-human intelligence that walked, or perhaps floated, across a primordial Earth billions of years before the first fish swam? Geology offers a far quieter but no less wondrous explanation. Experts in mineralogy point to a common natural process known as concretion. In the soft, muddy sediments of that ancient seabed, a microscopic grain of a harder mineral could have served as a nucleus. As minerals precipitated out of the water, they built up layer upon layer around that nucleus, much like a pearl forms around a grain of sand. The spherical shape is simply the most efficient form for such a layered accretion in a uniform medium. The enigmatic grooves are likely the result of later geological stress, as the immense pressures of deep burial and tectonic movement compacted the surrounding rock. These harder, spherical concretions resisted. The softer material around them, however, would have flowed and compressed, sometimes creating those sharp, linear impressions around the sphere's equator, a natural vice grip frozen in stone. This explanation satisfies the scientific need for a process we can observe elsewhere. Yet, the Klerksdorp Spheres retain their symbolic power as the ultimate deep-time anomaly. They force us to confront the sheer, incomprehensible scale of geological time. 2.8 billion years is a duration that dwarfs all of human civilization, all of recorded history, into a fleeting instant. Within that vastness, natural processes have had ample opportunity to create shapes that mimic design, patterns that trick our pattern-seeking minds. These spheres represent the outer limit of the search. If we were ever to find a genuine artifact from a pre-human epoch, it would have to survive not just centuries, but cataclysmic cycles of mountain building, continental drift, and the constant recycling of the Earth's crust. The likelihood is vanishingly small, so these grooved spheres stand as a beautiful lesson in humility. They challenge us to hold two truths at once. We can marvel at their seemingly intelligent form, allowing our imagination to wander to the farthest possibilities of life in the cosmos. And we can simultaneously respect the patient, artistic power of nature itself, which over billions of years can craft a perfect, grooved sphere without a single guiding hand. They are a testament not to lost technology, but to the profound and often deceptive artistry of time. 30 separate puzzles now lie before us, each a fracture in the smooth surface of history. Together, they do not point to a single, secret civilization or a lone cataclysm that reset everything. The picture they paint is far more intricate and in many ways more human. It is a portrait of a past that is not a steady climb, but a flickering flame, sometimes blazing with unexpected brilliance, sometimes guttering low, only to be rekindled in a different time and place. The true value of these anomalies is not in proving one radical theory, but in dismantling a single, simplistic one. They collectively argue against the comforting idea of a straight, unbroken line from primitive to advanced. Consider the spectrum of evidence. On one end, we have objects like the London Hammer or the Coso Artifact. These may very well be explained by geological coincidence or modern intrusion. They serve a vital purpose as cautionary tales, reminding us that our first interpretation is not always correct, and that nature is a master of mimicry. They teach humility, forcing us to apply rigorous scrutiny before rewriting textbooks. On the opposite end, we have sites like Göbekli Tepe and devices like the Antikythera Mechanism. These are not disputed by mainstream archaeology, they are celebrated, yet their existence demands we revise our deepest assumptions. Göbekli Tepe proves monument building can precede agriculture, turning the engine of civilization on its head. The Antikythera Mechanism shows that peaks of mechanical genius could be reached and then lost for over 1,000 years. What emerges from the middle ground, from the Vitrified Forts and the polygonal walls, the drill cores and the Baghdad Battery, is a pattern of punctuated development. It suggests that human knowledge does not always accumulate in a neat pile. Instead, it can flare up in isolated pockets, a culture mastering stone fitting to an impossible degree, another glimpsing the principles of electricity, another developing a chemical recipe so perfect it lasts for millennia. These flashes of ingenuity might be born from unique environmental pressures, inspired leadership, or simply a lucky convergence of curious minds. The tragedy implied by so many of these artifacts is that such knowledge was often fragile. It could be held by a single guild, stored in one library, or tied to a specific ritual. When that society faced hardship, conflict, or simply a shift in priorities, that specialized understanding could vanish, leaving behind only the physical artifact as a ghost of its former capability. This view does not require lost continents or ancient astronauts. It requires only that we accept a more realistic, more dynamic model of human history. Cultures are not monolithic blocks progressing in lockstep. They are ecosystems of ideas, some of which flourish and spread while others, perhaps the most advanced, remain rare and vulnerable. A brilliant innovation in metallurgy in ancient India might not travel to the Mediterranean. An architectural technique perfected in the Andes might not cross the ocean. The timeline, therefore, is not one line but a tapestry of many threads, some cut short, others woven together, creating a pattern far richer than we once imagined. The challenge for us now is not to discard our existing history but to expand it, to make room for the outliers, the flashes in the dark, and the quiet evidence of what was possible, even if it was not permanent. Our past becomes not a simple story, but a complex conversation, one where these 30 anomalies are the most compelling, unanswered questions. The tapestry of our past is richer and more resilient than any single thread. This expedition through 30 fractures in the standard timeline reveals a fundamental truth. History is not a closed book written in stone, but a living manuscript. Its pages are the very earth beneath our feet, constantly being turned by the spade, scanned by new technology, and reinterpreted by each generation's evolving perspective. These anomalies are far more than mere curiosities to collect on a list. They are profound invitations, a call to think critically about the stories we have been told, and to question the authoritative narratives that can, over time, harden into dogma. They remind us that intellectual humility is our greatest asset when facing the vast, echoing unknown of human origins. What we uncover is a portrait of potential that is both ancient and profound. It suggests our story is not a simple upward march from darkness to light, but a complex symphony with movements of brilliant crescendo and periods of haunting silence, cycles of rise, fall, and forgotten renaissance. The quiet lesson in every vitrified stone and every precision gear is that brilliance is fragile, and knowledge, no matter how advanced, can slip through the fingers of time. As we close this particular map of mysteries, hold onto this thought: each anomaly is a loose thread waiting to be pulled. Your curiosity is the hand that tugs. One dedicated researcher, one new piece of technology, one chance discovery in a forgotten archive could be the gentle pull that begins to unravel an entirely new understanding of who we are and where we come from. The conversation does not end here. If this journey has sparked a fire of wonder in you, I encourage you to follow that light. Delve deeper into the research surrounding these sites, read the conflicting papers, and explore the debates. The search itself is a kind of archaeology, sifting through layers of claim and counterclaim to build your own perspective, and I would love to hear your voice in this ongoing exploration. Share in the comments below which of these 30 anomalies you find most compelling and why it captures your imagination. If you hunger for more journeys to the edges of the known, consider subscribing for future deep dives into the enduring mysteries of our world. The next page is always waiting to be turned.